death. Authorities have not revealed the nature of the relationship, if any, between the victim and the accused killer, who is being held without bail as she awaits her next court hearing on March 7th.
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.
I am a resident of Maine, and I had the cops called on me. A SWAT team showed up, and I'm now engaged in a shootout. My state has been the #1 abortion and gay rights state in the entire country, and I've been segregated against for my beliefs. Now they're trying to arrest me simply because I do not believe in gay rights and abortion.
29-year-old Stephen Regini of Portage Lake, Maine, is dead after getting into a standoff with a SWAT team at his home, and part of the ordeal was televised in a Twitter X video. In the footage, Regini claimed that law enforcement was trying to arrest him for not supporting abortion and gay rights, and that the authorities were trying to take away his daughter, who was inside the home with him at the time of the incident. In reality, the police had responded to the home after receiving a call from Regini's 18-year-old wife, who accused him of pushing her during an argument. She left the house before law enforcement arrived, and when the police tried to arrest Regini, he pulled a gun, fired repeatedly, and retreated into the home. After several hours of failed negotiations, Regini attempted to flee the home on foot. He shot at a police canine that was pursuing him, prompting state troopers to return fire. Both Regini and the canine died in the exchange of bullets, but Regini's daughter survived. His wife later said that he was experiencing some sort of mental breakdown and that his behavior did not reflect his typical personality.
Yo, Elon, if you're out there, you should hire me. Kanye, if you're out there, you should hire me. All you people out there, all you world leaders, you should hire me.
So Kanye is a world leader?
I have the assets and the resources and the intellect to solve significant global issues.
Number 14. Alexander Ortiz. The uncle of a murdered woman was so overcome with anger during the accused killer's court hearing that he attacked the suspect, and he has expressed no regrets over the incident. Alexander Ortiz is facing a murder charge in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in connection with the 2024 death of 20-year-old Aliana Farfan, who was fatally shot inside her bedroom. During a procedural hearing on January 31st, Farfan's uncle, 40-year-old Carlos Lucero, could be seen hopping over the barrier and charging at Ortiz. Shocking video showed Ortiz unsuccessfully trying to run away in shackles, as Lucero took him to the floor and punched him repeatedly, while another man, 51-year-old Pete Yasasi, joined in the attack. Meanwhile, the defendant's father tried breaking up the fight, but law enforcement was required to intervene in order to get the situation under control. Ortiz suffered cuts to the face, and both Lucero and Yasasi were charged with assault and battery of a peace officer for their actions during the melee, although Yasasi's connection to the case is unclear. Number 13. Nora Nelson. Police found 65-year-old Boston-based attorney Joseph Donahue stabbed to death on his houseboat during a welfare check in Charleston, Massachusetts. Officers went to check on Donahue after receiving a call from his concerned son, who hadn't heard from him in days. There were dozens of wounds to Donahue's head and body, and his deceased dog was found floating in the water nearby. The killer attacked the lawyer in such a rage that the blade broke off the handle and became lodged in his skull. A rug and a blanket were duct taped around Donahue's body, and there were also dumbbells attached to his remains. The only living person present at the scene was 24-year-old Nora Nelson, who was arrested on unrelated warrants and is now facing a murder charge in connection with Donahue's death. Authorities have not revealed the nature of the relationship, if any, between the victim and the accused killer, who is being held without bail as she awaits her next court hearing on March 7th. Number 12. Danette Colbert. 48-year-old Danette Colbert of Slidell, Louisiana, is facing a murder charge for the death of 27-year-old Telemundo reporter Adan Manzano, who was found dead in his hotel room while staying in New Orleans to cover the Super Bowl. Colbert, who has a history of drugging men and stealing their credit cards, was reportedly seen leaving Manzano's room shortly before his body was discovered. She also has a history of stealing money and committing other financial crimes, making her a likely candidate for Manzano's murder in the eyes of law enforcement. The accused killer spent just moments inside the room before fleeing the scene, according to police. Authorities are currently testing Manzano's remains to determine whether there were any drugs in his system at the time of his death, and Colbert is in custody on suspicion of various property crimes, including fraud and theft-related offenses. Whether or not she'll be charged with Manzano's murder remains to be seen. Number 11. Chisarik Chong. 47-year-old Martin Olive was taking a smoke break outside his cannabis dispensary in San Francisco on January 27th when he was shot 7 times in a seemingly random attack. Surveillance footage of the incident showed Olive scrolling through his phone when a man on an e-bike, later identified as 34-year-old Jasarik Chong, pulled up to the curb. Chong walked up to Olive, pulled the gun out of his pants and opened fire on the store owner. Olive could be seen dropping his phone, putting his hands to his head and falling onto his back on the sidewalk before Chong fired one final shot into his head and calmly walked into the building next door. Miraculously, Olive survived the shooting and was rushed to the hospital with severe injuries. Meanwhile, police tracked Chong to a 6th-floor apartment where the suspect was killed in a shootout with officers during an attempt to take him into custody. In addition to physical wounds, Olive is suffering psychological trauma from the near-death experience, which he initially thought was a TikTok prank. He has since returned home from the hospital and is focused on healing for the time being.
Crazy.
Number 10. Dennis Irwin Brandel Jr. An elderly Texas man is facing criminal charges after opening fire at Pasadena Memorial High School during a band contest. 83-year-old Dennis Irwin Brandel Jr. began shooting into the crowd during the late-night hours of Saturday, February 1st, striking a 26-year-old stranger. He was quickly tackled by a group of heroic dads with military and police backgrounds, who restrained him until the police arrived. Brandel reportedly told officers that he believed someone was chasing him and his wife and that he feared for their lives. A witness recalled hearing the suspect yelling, "Someone's trying to shoot me," during the ordeal. The victim survived, and Brandel was booked into the Harris County Jail on suspicion of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He no longer appears to be in custody, indicating that he posted the $80,000 bond required to secure his freedom amid the ongoing case. Number 9. Mass shooting in Sweden. The country of Sweden experienced its worst mass shooting of all time at around noon on Tuesday, February 4th, when a gunman opened fire at an adult education center in the city of Örebro, roughly 100 miles outside Stockholm. 10 people were killed and 6 others were injured, and police are still working to understand the series of events that unfolded before and during this senseless tragedy. Known as Komvux, Campus Risbergska is a vocational school for adults who did not complete the earlier stages of their education. These centers are intended to teach students useful skills for gaining employment and are popular among Sweden's immigrant and refugee communities. Harrowing cell phone footage showed terrified students ducking for cover beneath desks while emergency alarms blared and bright red lights flashed. Little is known about the perpetrator. Police have yet to confirm the man's identity pending DNA test results, but have said that they do not believe the incident was gang-related or inspired by an extremist ideology. Authorities have also declined to identify a motive for the attack, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation, and have promised to release more information as it becomes available. Number 8.
Thinking.
Bruce Reginald Foster III. 2 victims were killed and at least 4 others were injured in what police are describing as a targeted shooting at an Ohio cosmetics warehouse on Tuesday, February the 4th. Gunfire broke out at the building in New Albany at around 11 p.m. according to police, who said that one of the victims who did not survive was pronounced dead at the scene. The remaining 5 victims were rushed to the hospital, where the second fatal victim succumbed to their injuries and the conditions of the other victims are unknown. Authorities identified the suspect as 28-year-old warehouse employee Bruce Reginald Foster III. He fled the scene using a rideshare service, leaving the legally purchased murder weapon behind at the scene, and was later captured at a nearby home. According to law enforcement, the shooting may have been targeted despite no obvious ongoing threats to any of the workers at the warehouse. Foster is charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, and more charges are expected to follow. He's currently in custody with bail set at $20 million as he awaits his next court hearing, which is scheduled for February 13th. Number 7. Tamira Laws. A Texas escort is currently on trial for killing her grandmother, who she believed was practicing witchcraft against her. 28-year-old Tamira Laws of San Antonio is accused of murdering 70-year-old Doris Ruth Novella, who was choked, stabbed, and bludgeoned with a hammer back in 2020. The defense is arguing for a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict, while the prosecution claims that Laws acted knowingly and with the intention to kill the victim. Testifying in her own defense last week, Laws became hysterical on the stand, essentially stating that there was no logical reason for her to want Novella dead. She told prosecutors that she believed she had to beat the evil energy out of her grandma, and she admitted to stabbing the victim in the throat. Laws insisted that she was not in her right mind at the time of the killing and that she was hearing voices and suffering from psychosis when she made the irrational decision to resort to life-ending violence. If convicted as charged, she could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. For now, the trial continues. Number 6. Shootings in Belgium. The Belgian capital of Brussels was plagued by 4 separate shootings in the past week, the first of which occurred near the Clemenceau metro station. Surveillance footage showed 2 balaclava-clad men carrying guns near the station's entrance, and the perpetrators managed to flee the scene before the police could catch them. The second shooting occurred in the same area. Only one person was injured in the first 3 shootings, while the fourth shooting claimed one victim's life. According to police, all 4 shootings are gang and drug related, while terrorism has been ruled out as a motive. While there have been previous shootings in Belgium, 4 within a week is an alarmingly high number. The crimes occurred amid a concerning spike in drug-related gang violence in the country, prompting the Belgian government to promise a heightened police presence on the streets. The perpetrators remain at large, and law enforcement is reportedly working diligently to catch the culprits.
These people
Number 5.
Crazy.
David Pierce. A small-time Hollywood producer named David Pierce has been found guilty of murdering 24-year-old fashion model Christy Giles and 26-year-old architect Hilda Marcela Cabreras Arzola, who were dumped outside separate hospitals after a night of partying in Los Angeles in November 2021. Both women died from drug overdoses, and a search of their devices showed that they had felt uncomfortable and were trying to leave after going to a private residence with some men they had met at a club. According to prosecutors, Pierce drugged the victims' drinks and plied them with fentanyl-laced cocaine, resulted in the fatal overindulgence of the deadly opioid. Following Pierce's arrest, 7 additional women came forward with allegations that he had assaulted them on past occasions. In addition to being convicted of the 2 murders, the 42-year-old was found guilty of all 7 assaults, which occurred over a 13-year period. Pierce is currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for March 13th, and is facing 148 years to life, which means that he'll most likely never see freedom again, no matter how long of a prison term the judge imposes.
Good.
Number 4. Natalie Cochran. An infamous former pharmacist was sentenced to life in the West Virginia state prison system for murdering her husband with insulin when he threatened to uncover her $2 million Ponzi scheme. 42-year-old Natalie Cochran killed 38-year-old Michael Cochran in 2019 in order to preserve her scam, which involved posing as a government contractor while defrauding unsuspecting investors out of jaw-dropping 7-figure sums. She used the ill-gotten funds to finance a lavish lifestyle, including property, jewelry, and cars. Cochran pleaded guilty to federal charges of wire fraud and money laundering in 2020. She nearly got away with Michael's murder, but was charged with the crime after his body was exhumed for a second autopsy, during which a pathologist detected non-prescribed insulin in his system. The husband killer was serving an 11-year prison sentence when she went on trial for the murder case, and she was found guilty in late January. Following the verdict, the jury imposed a no-mercy sentence, which means Cochran will never see freedom again.
Good.
Number 3. The murder of George Levin. A pair of illegal immigrants are facing murder charges in connection with the death of 63-year-old George Levin, who was found bound, beaten, and gagged in a Chicago apartment after making plans to meet someone on the Grindr dating app. Using surveillance footage and other evidence, investigators identified the alleged killers as 29-year-old Venezuelan national Jefferson Ubilla Delgado and 21-year-old Gideon Bayo Morales, who migrated to the U.S. from Ecuador. According to police, the suspects were seen leaving their home with a roll of duct tape on the night of the murder. They went to Levin's residence, where the victim's sister overheard loud noises coming from the downstairs apartment that her brother lived in. By the time she gained access to Levin's apartment, he was cold to the touch. Ubilla Delgado and Bayo Morales got away long enough to use Levin's credit cards to make some purchases, but are now in custody on suspicion of murder. Number 2. Ashley White. A 29-year-old Colorado woman named Ashley White has been found guilty of second-degree murder after killing her boyfriend because he doubted her ability to land a decent job. The incident occurred back in 2020 when White became upset with 28-year-old Cody DeLisa for questioning her employment prospects after a job interview in Denver. During the bus ride home, White learned of DeLisa's doubts via a text message and apparently became enraged. Before reaching her destination, she befriended a man who called himself Scott and lied to him about DeLisa supposedly assaulting her. The two strangers then agreed to kill DeLisa, and Scott accompanied White to the couple's home, where White introduced him as her brother from Texas. At some point shortly thereafter, one of the suspects shot DeLisa in the head twice.
She didn't even know the man, and he agreed to kill her boyfriend. That's crazy.
Police found his body the next day while responding to a request for a welfare check at the residence. White was convicted of murder this week after finally going to trial. Her alleged co-conspirator, Michael Stratton, has not been charged with the crime but is formally accused of another murder and has been deemed unfit to stand trial. Number 1. Serene Francie Rosenberg. The president of a California mortgage lender is accused of killing the 88-year-old passenger of another vehicle in a head-on collision in Dana Point after making the regrettable decision to drive while intoxicated. 48-year-old Serene Francie Rosenberg, who has headed OCMBC's Lone Stream Mortgage since 2019, ran a red light and struck a full transit van with her Land Rover at around 6:15 p.m. on January 31st, resulting in the instant death of Melvin Joseph Weibel. The van's driver survived with serious but non-life-threatening injuries, and Rosenberg was booked into the Orange County Jail on suspicion of murder and driving under the influence of alcohol, causing injury. She reportedly has 3 prior convictions, but the sheriff's office did not specify what they were for. Following her arrest, Rosenberg was removed from her job position and has since been replaced by the company's new president, John Hamill.
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.